Oh, freedom.
My people have struggled in this country since 1619. In fact, some of the earliest slaves were brought to North America in the 1500s. As my people were emancipated in 1863, but some of us didn't find out till later in 1865. That's why we celebrate Juneteenth. Even though we were free in January of that year, everybody didn't get the news until June. My job is to make sure I emancipate my people, to help them purchase homes, to help them become entrepreneurs, to help them build up their wealth, because you truly can't be free unless you can curate your own wealth. I want to make sure that I help you become emancipated by sharing you the documented stories that we have in our quest to emancipate our people. This is one of those stories.
And go home to my Lord and be free.
What's up, everybody? We on another edition of Emancipate. We're going to call it Emancipate because I keep fussing with my camera guy. It ain't free to smoke. Emancipate. All right, anyway. Hey, everybody. How you doing? It's Maxwell. Another edition of Emancipate. And we have a young lady who is definitely in the vein of helping emancipate our people in so many ways with her journalistic skills. I just be so happy when our people, anybody, but when our people definitely use their skill set to kind of uplift us and shed light on the positive things we do, because a lot of times the only thing they want to do is paint the negative on us. So anyway, without further ado, I want to introduce to you Miss Brandi Kellam. Go ahead, tell them a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, so I mean, a lot to tell, but I'll keep it to the basics, which are born and raised in this area.
Oh yeah.
Right. Actually went to high school across the water in Chesapeake, Deep Creek High School. But some of that track competitiveness brought me over here in Newport News, which is how I became familiar with the city. But then after I graduated from high school, I ended up going to UNC Chapel Hill. I ran track there.
Oh yeah.
And yeah, my dream was actually to go to the Olympics.
Oh, yeah.
Actually, so yeah, I thought I was going to be in the
What
Olympics.
did you run?
I ran the 400.
Oh what?
Yeah.
That's my favorite. What about the 4x4 is my favorite.
Yeah,
race.
I was always anchored too.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
Oh yeah. I used to always run like the mile to the 800, but then they always put me on the 4x4, and I loved it because it's only one lap. I didn't want to do all them laps. But yeah, the 400 is a beat.
Yeah,
Anchor leg and UNC.
Oh, anchor leg. So I ran 4x4 anchor leg mostly here in high school.
Yeah.
But yes, at UNC I ran the 4x4 as well.
Get out of here.
My main event was the 400 at
Get
UNC.
out of here.
Mm-hmm.
You come out the blocks and everything.
Yeah.
Man, me, look. I be like this. I didn't know how to climb the block. That's why I probably couldn't run it.
Right.
That's why I was on the relay, you know. I went anchor, I was second or third leg or whatever.
Right.
Look, I'm standing up. Coach like, what if you don't learn how to climb the block? Hey man, I'm good. Everything else, I ain't come on the block in the mile or the 800, so I'm good, coach. Let somebody else start it off. You know what I'm saying?
No.
I ain't like them things, man. I ain't like them at all.
You ain't like the block?
Cause like, man, I mean, they ain't let me sprint. I mean, I ran the 4x1 maybe 2 times that somebody was hurt, and then I'm the slower one, so I'm second leg.
Wow.
Cause I ain't run but 4.9, you know what I'm saying? Like I wasn't fast, but I don't know how. But when I ran like the 800, I ran like 155.
Oh, that's a good
153.
time.
Yeah, but I'm like, it seems like I should be a little faster. How I'm running this fast this time? The mile I did it like 4:05.
Oh, you were actually pretty good.
Yeah, I was good at it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't do it no more. 10:05.
Right.
Oh, dude, I was killing it for a minute, man.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
The track and field, that's like, I feel like one of the best sports out there because it teaches you how to be like individually competitive.
Yes.
It like teaches you how to like look into yourself and like really learn how to mentally and physically make yourself. Yeah. Yeah, I know. I'm really into that. Yeah.
And that's how, when I was in middle school, we had field day or whatever.
Yeah.
And 7th grade, I ran, was it 6th grade? 6th grade, 7th grade. 7th grade or whatever, I came in second place in the cross country. And I don't like second place. I feel like, what was that man, Ricky Bobby? Second place is the first loser. Dude, you know what I'm saying? Second place is the first loser. I don't like that, dude.
You're not first, you're last.
Yeah, it's like first and last, man. He said second is just the first loser. So in the words of that, I came in second, so the next year, like, I'm going to win. Everybody saying, how you going to win? He beat you last year, so wait, beat me last year. So it was like these steep hills. Like, I lived in a circle, Bryan Circle, and so boom. But then everybody, Wood Hill, boom, it was a circle, but it was like real tall hills. Like, I used to ride my bike and I used to have dreams or nightmares when my brakes went out of stock. Cause they hill, like you be scared. I would be scared sometimes coming out on my bike because the hill was so steep. So man, I go there and I run at home. See some of y'all track stars in school. You can't just practice with the practice time. You got to practice on your own time.
Right.
And so I'm hitting these hills. So I know I'm ready. Cause if I'm running around doing a mile, 2 miles, and I'm hitting these hills, dude, straight flat, I got you. So anyway, I won. I missed the record by like 2 seconds at the school. 2 seconds. And so the thing was, more story, I won because you weren't gonna beat me twice. You ain't gonna beat me twice. I ain't like that. So I trained. I was ready on my own. Yes, I went to track practice, but I did my own practice as well because I knew I had
That's
to
amazing.
get better if
That's
I'm gonna win.
Yeah.
So I like what she said, it gets you disciplined. So
It
you
does.
learn how to run with a team, but you also learn individually as well.
You're really competing with yourself.
Exactly.
That's really what it is.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Whatever. I ain't want that Negro to beat me. So I want to say that,
Right.
but I can't say it on that one. I know what you mean.
It's
I'm
the
messing with you.
competition that causes you to compete with yourself.
I got
though.
look at you. Look at you. I can say that with golf, but I can't say that with that. I wanted that joker. But anyway.
I had my moments on the track like that too.
Yeah, dude.
I'm gonna get her the next one.
Yeah, and they made it worse because they kept talking and like you ain't gonna win, which is not helping. You're not helping this guy. They telling
you.
Yeah, they telling me. You ain't
gonna win.
Right. So you ain't helping this guy at all. You just making me badder. Yeah, you just making me, okay, I got something for you. What I get? I'm like David. How David went to the battle. What I get if I do this? What you gonna get me when I win? I don't want it to be talking to you. But anyway, if y'all don't know, this is a great journalist here, and how I met her, and I hate it. Sorry, I missed what I was supposed to be because something went on. I don't know, my brother, my mom. Anyway, I had something, and I wasn't able to make it to the CNU event that I was supposed to be at with you. But tell them about that article that you wrote.
Yeah, so again, growing up in the area, sometimes I would compete on this side of the water, and I often competed on Christopher Newport University's track facilities, not knowing at the time. So this was like around 2000, early 2000s, right? As a high school athlete, not knowing at the time that I was running on land that was owned by Black people, and not just a few, like a lot of Black people, like a whole community of Black people. And so when I learned this maybe like 3 years ago now, right? So when I learned it, I was very shocked, and I decided to pursue the avenue of learning more about that history. And I learned that there was a community that existed there that was pretty much historic in some ways, right? Number one, it's historic when you have a group of Black people that own a collection of land that large, 100 acres, right? Over 100 acres of land. That's historic in and of itself, right? Then you find out that part of that was stripped from them because of racist motivations, right? And then you find out not only was it stripped from them, but they kept fighting up until almost like present day. So this is not something that happened just in the 50s or 60s when segregation was very prominent, but they continued to lose the community even after that, up until like the early 2000s when I was an athlete renting on land that was formerly owned by these people. And so what I decided to do was I pursued several avenues to get the funding. First, I had a Columbia University grant back in 2021. Then that progressed to a ProPublica fellowship. ProPublica is a prominent national investigative journalism platform. They do a lot of great award-winning reporting. So they partnered with me, and I moved back to Virginia officially about 2 or 3 years ago, and pretty much told the story from the voice of the community. And that turned into about a 7-story investigative series that looked at the history of the community, what happened to it fully, the full story. It looked at different parties that played a role in that, from the state to the city to the college, how each one played a role in the ultimate erasure of that community. We actually interview current residents, like the last 5 residents living on the land in that area. And we also interview people who were familiar with it, like the former president of the college, right? So we told a very full story. And because of that, we were able to get the recognition that the community had never really had.
Wow.
And that led to a couple of things. So number one, it was definitely an award-winning series. Like, I'm gonna brag a little bit. It was good. It was award-winning. Exactly. I won my first Emmy as a film director. Thank you. And also a couple of high profile awards. But also, what's more important to me is that it sparked legislation in Virginia. And so there's actually a commission right now, a state commission of some delegates, some house, some senators, and then some local residents, not residents, but like Virginia residents. So you have like historians and like people who have like a stake in the higher education field in this state. They are on this commission of 19 members looking at not just Christopher Newport, but other colleges in Virginia, other public universities, how they have played a role in displacing Black communities and what can be done to address that issue.
That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
And see, some people got upset at me because I'm going to take what I'm going to get, right? So people know me. I speak out all the time. I speak out about the police. I get certain funding from the police to do certain things to make sure we protect our community. People say, oh, so I remember one Black person said, oh, they think you're your friend. That's why you can't get anything changed. I hired the last 3 assistant police chiefs. When I said who to hire, that's who they hired. I was able to say, hey, this other dude, he kind of racist. It's going to come out. And eventually it did come out. And it's amazing because, we know. If you us, we know sometimes. So the amazing thing is, people like you open up arenas. Because see, CNU, they gave me an award, not CNU, the NAACP gave me an award, so they had that CNU. CNU gave a big discount. Some people didn't believe that we should go there because of what happened. And I'm like, dude, I take guilt money all day. At the end of the day, the Bible says the wealth of the wicked laid up for the righteous. So because of her article, I already know you need positive Black stories. So you know what else I got out of that? And me and President cool. I mean, I can't say he has a historical part in it. He just got there, the current president now. But I said, hey, I went to the country club. I ain't gonna lie, I'm gonna go on to tell the whole story because he think it was happenstance. You can see on the country club who about to play at what time. So I look, I said, oh, he playing it? Okay, I'm gonna set my tea time right behind his tea time. And then I'm gonna get there a little early. And I was like, oh, what's up? I said, hey, because this is after your article. I said, hey, man, I know you need some positive Black stories. That's what I say. Hey, I got one for you. I have a young Black man, and he's about to be the first person in this generation of his entire family to go to college. I said, I gave him some money for a computer because he said he wanted a computer, but he took that $500 that I gave him, and instead of buying a computer, he ended up using that money to enroll in your school. Now, his mom was upset because the church, the ministry gave him this money for a specific thing. I said, no, this is dope. That's like a bigger thing. A computer not going to make him as much as him getting a degree. And so I said, he needs some help. Man, he emailed his people. Next day, boom, they gave him all the food, the food vouchers or whatever, the food card. And then they also gave him, they covered half of his tuition. They covered half of his tuition. And now he does so good in music that he's probably about to get the other half taken care of because of that. And it's all because when I saw that, I used that as leverage. I'm like, oh, yeah, I'm going to use this story. I know you need some positive Black stuff, so let's go ahead and do this. And so this is my thing. Like, at the end of the day, people exploit us all the time. And sometimes you got to learn how to play the system as well because the system going to always play you. You understand? And so my thing is, a lot of time we got to change the narrative. Like you call me whatever you want to call me. I'm gonna help my people however I can help my people. The land is stolen in my mind. It's already been stolen, but at least I can capitalize now from where we are now. What can my people get out of it now? Right? Some people get upset because they say, why you do Southern Baptist? Because Southern Baptist will fly somebody out here. I ain't got to fly them out here to train my people. They'll give me books for free so I can sample them. They'll put their own people in the hotel. They'll do all that. They'll fly me to certain places. That's how I met World Vision. Why do I do that? And this white lady was telling me, you shouldn't do that. You shouldn't do that. I said, you just like Master trying to tell me what I should and should not do. At the end of the day, yeah, they was on the wrong side of slavery, but I'm going to take this daggone guilt money. Why would I pass up the guilt money? The wealth of the wicked later for the righteous. Read your Bible. I'm going to take this and I'm going to use it to help my people. I don't care if you give it to me because you love me or you give it to me because you're just trying to look good. At the end of the day, I'm going to use it to help my people. And so that's why I want to publicly thank you because your articles and things like that. Because if you don't have people pushing, because I'm going to push too, but if you got a journalist pushing and getting the story out there, that begins to put us in a better position to leverage it. Because when people know the true history, everybody ain't evil. Because if every white person was evil, if every white person was racist, we wouldn't be where we are now. We still be on the back of the bus. We still be in slavery. So at the end of the day, when she writes an article, it's hitting our consciousness to wake some of us up. And it's also hitting some of the people who may not know what's going on, because some people not racist, they just tone deaf or don't know what's going on. And so when she eloquently wrote all that stuff together, boom, it started making everybody start coming out of the woodwork. Gayleen them started fussing from Hampton. Newport News started fussing from here. Then the NAACP, because they was making noise. Then here go Christopher Newport. Oh, y'all want to do an event? Well, y'all can have this for half or something off that they had it for. I don't know what it was, but I know they ain't pay nowhere near full price. And my thing is because journalism like this begins to help us be able to, leverage some things and get some things done, because you're paying off the conscience of other people.
Well, I will also say too, like, even beyond that, we are in a state, and I don't know, I'm not trying to get too like political.
Because it used to be called Bring the Smoke, so he took it away, and we made him Emancipate. So bring the smoke.
Yeah, I think this journalism is important because we don't know our history.
Ooh, and they try to erase it too.
Like, we really don't know, and this is not just like, we is a universal, right?
Yes.
Like both sides of the coin, right? And I think a part of that is intentional, that there's history that has led to the reason why, and I'm going to talk about Black people because that's what that's the community that I focus on, that Black people are where they are. And when you look at a city like Newport News, what turned me into Newport News to begin with was when I learned that Newport News, I found this stat online that said it was one of the most redlined cities in America. One of the most redlined cities in America, not just in Virginia, right? That really says a lot it says a lot about how strategic it was to oppress Black people in this city.
This was the first place to have slaves.
So for me, it's like, when I try to do my reporting, it's really more so to enlighten people and wake them up, not just our people, but others as well, as to like, not we're here because we can't do, or we're not able to think. We're smart people. We're very creative. We've always been innovative, right? And it's just, we have had a lot of challenges that have kept us from being able to rise to the level that we know we're capable of. And this story is really an example of how historically that has led to challenges, like current day challenges, like the housing wealth gap in this city. Like, if you look at the Newport News as a whole, most of the Black people who are low income, where do they live?
Downtown. They
live downtown. And like, part of that is tied to this story, because when people were displaced, they went back downtown, And so what I really hope people get out of it is understanding that history plays a role in present day, and not just like temporarily what can be done to benefit from that, but like holistically, what can you do to address this? Like, what can you do, number one, to educate yourself, to maybe like heal people, to understand, like, for us to collectively get to a better place, we have to acknowledge how we got here,
Right. You have to acknowledge that we've already made it before. They just cut it down. You come up, they burn down Rosewood. You have your own city, okay, get rid of us. Tulsa, Oklahoma, you bomb it. You use for American planes. You understand? Lake Lanier. We go there, but a lot of people drown in Lake Lanier. Why? Because it's a city that's buried under there. It was a prestigious Black city that they flooded because they was upset that the Black people were prospering, and they flooded the city. So still trees down there, all types of a city underwater. I mean, it's a real life flipping Atlantis. They drowned, they flooded the city because they were upset about the income that the Black people were making. You understand? And so I was looking at a history about jockeys and on horses, and how in the 1900s, Black people were the one winning. And one of the first athletes ever advertised internationally and nationwide was black was actually a jockey. And so they would train the horse, do all these different things. And then when they got upset about the prowess or the attention they were getting, then they began to just let the black people take care of the horses but not ride the horses. I mean, if you're looking at cowboys, they used slaves to break the horses. And they started calling them cowboys in order to demean them. But then, you know, master wife looking at this cowboy in a way, and everybody looking at him, and they got upset, and then they began to stop letting him do that or whatever, and made their own thing out of it because at the end of the day, it was turning on, making jungle fever. You understand? So when you look at the history of how we have overcome so many things, I look at, man, they asked Jesse Jackson a question on national TV once. And the guy asked him, he said, hey, why is it that black people excel in athletics? And the guy said, and they thought Jesse was going to say, oh, we got better genes in that. Or, you know what, we got sports intelligence. He said, because it's public, everybody know the rules, and everybody know the boundaries. And you can only cheat but so much because everybody know the rules. But when you're trying to come up and elevate yourself in systematic racism, everybody don't see the hidden rules and the hidden things they do in order to oppress us. So we are elevated and we succeed in sports, not because that it's something with our mindset or whatever, that's the only thing we can do. That's what the world sees, and they see the boundaries, they see the rules, so we excel because you have to be fair with me in that, right? It was crazy. And so now, this is a journalist. Why am I talking? Why am I even talking? Look, I don't know, because you're a journalist, so I know you watch everything. The Shedeur Sanders thing. What do you? And I always look at media, how they paint when you have a strong father. I know Dion might be a little extra sometimes, but at the end of the day, when you have a strong black father, you look at how they did to Williams. They were mad at him for how he took care of it. They were mad at Tiger Woods' father, right? They were mad at, what's the boys, man? That basketball, the brothers. The brothers, I don't want to say light skin, but that's the only way I get.
The Currys?
No, they was already in the man, the one had the brand. You know what I'm talking about? Yeah, I can't think of their name for nothing. Both two of them in the NBA now, and the other one I think overseas. Man, you know what I'm saying? I don't know, but anyway, that's crazy why I can't remember them, man. But they villainize all these black men or black parents that begin to change the narrative of their children because they're protecting them. But I ain't trying to lead you into that. That's just what the Shedeur Sanders. What do you feel about that?
I think that there does exist a double standard in our society, right? I mean, not just in sports, but in every avenue, every industry that you can think of, right? It's almost like if I could be, I've experienced this myself in my own industry, right? Where I've been literally same credentials sitting next to someone who doesn't look like me, right? And they could give an idea, and it's very intelligent, but I give an idea, and it's like, we don't know for sure if we're gonna do that, right? So there's like this question as to, my intelligence and my, really honestly, my, the audacity I have to feel confident in myself to be able to present something, and expect people to receive it the way they would receive it if anyone else was giving the same idea or information, right? So yeah, the double standard definitely exists. There's no denying that. So that's what I think, and that's what I really see in that situation. I see people who are much more eloquent at speaking on this than me have had great pieces in breaking this down. But really, what it does come down to is a double standard. But I've always, I don't think that that's fair, is what I'm saying. But I do think also, I love the resilience of us as people to be able to, even in the double standard, rise above it, right? Yes. And this actually does. I know we're going to talk about other things. If I could just actually point out, even in the community that I had the opportunity to share those stories, you had a NASA engineer who worked with, everybody knows who Katherine Johnson is, right? From Hidden Figures. Yeah. He was one of the first 3 Black NASA engineers. Okay. Talk about resilience. Yes. Talk about people who built their homes by hand. Yes. Like by hand. Yes. Like, you know, they didn't. Machine, right. Yes, these people built their homes by hand. So, and the double standard is, yes, they were trying to create this Black middle class community, but they were getting the not here, right? Not here where you create it. And some of them were accused of having like shanty looking homes. Most of the homes did not look like that. So even how it was portrayed in the media, right? And you could consider me a journalist because I'm part of the media. That all contributes to this idea that we have in society about how Black people are as a stereotype, right? Wow. You know. So, but what I really want to. What I want to leave with is that even through the double standard, these people continue to rise above it, right? I mean, they went in federal court. They went to federal court to sue the college at one point. And you know that was an uphill battle for them, right? But they still did it. Right. And so what I learned in that is that what I'm learning from that community and how they were resilient is what gives me hope in this current day, is what I'm saying. Mm-hmm. Because if we can experience and witness what we're witnessing right now, like the Shedeur Sanders situation or any other situation that we're seeing a lot of right now when it comes to how people view us in this country, if they can continue to fight through the straight, like harsh harm and really like visceral, you know, oppression that they experienced, right? Then we can continue to just push through and continue to, like, what I'm going to do, educate people. You know, my goal is to inform and educate other people. Your goal might be to provide platforms for people like me to share these stories. But everybody plays a role in us continuing to push against that oppression that seems to constantly be there, right? Sometimes it's in the background, but right now I feel like it's like really in the foreground, right? And I just feel like that's what I learned. That's what I take away when I see the Shedeur Sanders or any other thing. It's just like, okay, this is nothing new. There's nothing new under the sun. Nothing. This is what we have been experiencing as a people for much more longer than I've been on this earth. Wow. You know, so, you know, it's just really about an ongoing willingness and commitment to continue to promote Black excellence, but also inform people about how we really are as people and what we're capable of. Wow.
And so you alluded to that. So when you go to the Shedeur about how they don't like when we confident, because, you know, what's his name? Joe Namath did the same thing years ago, talking about we gonna win this, and Jim McMahon would talk about how confident they were, and you look at that, and everybody said Johnny Football, he ain't won nothing really. But then they talk about, you know, they look at it like his confidence, yet call other people that look like me arrogant when they do the exact same thing. And so when you said people look at you like you have the audacity to be able to have an idea, how much pushback did you get doing this story on CNU? I gotta go there. Man, we're gonna just stay here. Just sit down. Have a cup of coffee. I don't even drink coffee.
He was like, we're gonna circle back to this. We're not going nowhere on this subject right now.
Let's go.
What I will say is that it definitely wasn't easy. Like, it might look like it was easy on the outside, but it took a lot of resilience to see this through. Where I started and how I ended, you know, when I say ended, because it hasn't ended, right? But where I am now versus where I started, I have gone through a lot, and I have learned a lot along the way. But in that, I will say that I have also learned how strong I am.
Yes.
That's what I'll say.
Yes.
I mean, it took me, what I will say, I'll just give this little bit of it, because I won't get into too many details on it. But it took me, I started this with the expectation that in 2021, in May, I got my first grant to do this research. By September, I was supposed to have already had the story published. September 2021. The story didn't get published till September 2023. So that goes to show you, like, there were some delays in that process. Not necessarily due specifically only to reporting challenges is what I'll say. There were other challenges that existed, but even still, like, I just feel, and we can go to a blessed moment, because I feel like I'm very blessed to have been given this purpose to see this through. And the way that it has come together, this is the way it was supposed to be, right? It was done so beautifully. Like 6 months wouldn't have given this story the justice it deserved. So I'm really glad that whatever the delays were, I feel like God had a bigger plan for this. And clearly that's what it is, right? So yeah, there were definitely some challenges, there was definitely some pushback. Some of it was very obvious, and others were like I'm not sure if this is pushback, but I'm seeing that I'm having a hard time getting this one simple thing done, right? But at the end of the day, I keep going back to its purpose, right? And I was very passionate about finishing what I started when it came to the research with this. And I'm still going with it, right? I'm still going with it. So.
When did the new president of CNU get there? What year was that?
I think that was, I don't have my exact research in front of me, but I think that was 2023, summer, somewhere around that time. Your story came out when? The first story came out in, and I could be wrong.
When did your first?
So don't quote me on that.
I'm going somewhere.
Okay. But September 2023.
Right.
When the first story came out. I've had a lot of conversations with people about how all this just really came together, and even beyond that, right? There are spiritual forces that probably did not want this story to come out, right? Because you have to think, we're talking about decades of intentional oppression by people that came well before us, and and I think that when you are trying to lift the veil over something like that, it's not just a simple, hey, this happened. You're actually fighting against not just what the physical world is presenting to you, but literally what the spiritual world is presenting to you. And I think that the way this came together, it came together the way it was supposed to, because people were willing. The time was right, and the where we are, the temperament in our country right now is right for people to be able to face this. And I wanted to also add to that, you talked about who was in power then, but we also need to look at who's in power right now, because we're looking at this issue as a way to repair what happened. The people who are in positions of power right now have the opportunity to, despite what happened in the past and who did what and what decisions are made in the past, authentically look at how to repair the harm that was caused to generations of Black families.
This is the thing. I'm gonna tell you how spiritual, like she said, that this stuff is. Atlanta. Only thing I outcast my people is only one line that I just don't agree with, when they call Maynard Jackson crooked in the little rap. All right? Maynard Jackson was the coldest Black mayor in the ATL. You feel me? He unapologetically made sure Black people had jobs. This is how he worked it out. Because of all the statues and stuff that was around the city, as far as when you call it the Confederate museums and Confederate monuments and statues, he said, hey, let's do this. When we build an airport, if you give every restaurant, every business that's in the airport, let every one business have a Black business. So it's 50% Black businesses in Atlanta airport because of Maynard Jackson, right? 50%, right? Because he said, but this is the deal he made. He said, when we do this, then we'll build a multi-million-dollar museum to put all the Confederate monuments in, so y'all can be able to go to the museum. So in Atlanta, you will see the historic restaurant Pascal's in there, because Pascal's was where King would always meet, because he couldn't gather. It was illegal for Black people to gather 3 and 4 and 5 people, so they would meet at Pascal's and other restaurants in order to craft out their civil rights movement strategies. And so he worked it out. He said, well, I want them to be able to be on building some of the airport as well. Well, no, you can't do that. They don't know how to do that. They don't know how to. He said, look, the daggone airport mostly runways, and Black folk know how to lay concrete. So then that's how he got around getting into be able to lay concrete. Now, all this stuff they put together so once the airport was expanded, then here they come. Now they build a museum. They were happy with the museum for 6-7 months. Then they realized, we ain't studying this stuff. We just want them monuments out there to keep black folk in line. So they was mad about the museum because they didn't want to go to it no more. They realized they just wanted it in the city so they could show us monuments of how they kept us in place. That stuff ain't nothing. When you talk about spiritual warfare, when you look at the spirits and stuff that Baal carried and those idols that people put out there, they put those idols there to keep your mind oppressed. So when you begin to see it, all you begin to think about is where I used to be. I used to be a slave. I used to be on the back of the bus. I used to this, and they continue to keep you because they suddenly want you to think that that's where you're supposed to be, and make you think, oh, you know what? We let you have this story. You should be grateful. You should be thanking us for letting you do this story. You should be thanking us for drafting you in the NFL. You should be thanking us for letting you play football. But at the end of the day, no matter what you do, no matter what I do, no matter what Shador Sanders or whoever does, when you playing for somebody and working for them, they always making more money than you. They using you to make money. If they didn't think they could make money off of you, they wouldn't have you there. And what the narrative is, when you look at these spiritual powers from high places, they always try to keep you thinking of you less than you are. They still want you to think that you're 2/3 of a human being. They still want you to think that you should be grateful that you're not on the back of the bus. They still want you to think that you should be grateful that you're able to vote. You understand? As if that's not your human right. You understand? And so when you start beginning to look at these roadblocks and begin to look at these things that systematically continue to try to keep you down, it's designed for a reason. And I really didn't see it clearly until I saw how mad some of those Caucasians were when they got tired of the museum. No, we want them back on the streets. Why? Because you just want to irritate me. You just want to make me see the symbolism of what keeps me oppressed. Because you already know I ain't going to go to the museum and see it. I ain't going to pay no ticket. I ain't going to go there for free. So anyway, it's just amazing how when you look at the mindset of it and how, like when you said you say an idea and they like, how do you even have the audacity to give an idea? You should just sit here and be quiet and be happy you got a job. And that's how we got to stop thinking, because the thing about it is we already know what Black Lives Matters mean. It's not saying white lives don't matter. We just trying to make sure you understand that y'all killing us and our lives matter too. And they try to sit up there and say, oh no, all lives matter. But that ain't even the point. The point is, once George Floyd got killed, then all of a sudden some white people liked it. And now some black people that weren't comfortable with it are comfortable with it because white people were happy. What my people need to stop doing is stop looking for white people to give you permission to make you think what you need to think. When you know it's true, it's true. I don't need your permission to speak my truth because I know what my truth is. I don't need your permission to tell me that my ideology, what I'm thinking is right. And a lot of times we don't really get comfortable with stuff until white people get comfortable with it. And I don't care if you're uncomfortable or not. I'm comfortable with my own idea. You need to get comfortable with yourself. And people might say, oh, this preaching hate because I'm trying to tell you how to love yourself. You're fearfully and wonderfully made. And a lot of times we don't even know our own heritage. But I ain't going to get into all that because I've been and took you back to being Hebrews and stuff like that. But I'm going to let that go. You go ahead. You the journalist. Bring us back where we need to go.
I was just going to say, not even just like the idea, but it's also our reality, right? That sometimes it feels like oppression feels like not just having to be respected for our ideas, but have to have our reality and our experience in this country validated, right? And I think that part of that has to do with so many different reasons why we are where we are. And I really do think, kind of bringing it home from where you were going with it, is I just think that this is really a time to tell the truth, you know, like to really tell what the experience was, just like rip the Band-Aid off, you know, because we are here because of the things that because of what we experience. I'm talking about Black people right now, right? We're here where we are where we are, and our status is where we are, and our experiences are what they are because of all the things we have endured. And it's almost like we're in to me, it feels like we're in a space right now where it's like, well, what else do we have to lose? Right? by telling the truth, by really telling the whole truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Wow.
You know, and that's not even to dig at what people did wrong, but like a part of healing is to tell the truth. You can't heal if you don't acknowledge the harm.
Hey, you better go ahead.
You know, you really can't heal fully. And I think this is the time. Not only you were talking about museums, I'm saying not only is it the time to really like tell the truth and tell our truth, but also to preserve our truth, to really preserve it. Because and do it for like you were saying, we don't need permission to speak up for ourselves. We also don't need permission to preserve our own history either. And back in the day, so what I learned from this also was there's something to be said about not having to be the loudest person in the room, but be one of the most powerful people in the room. And Mr. Johnson, the man who shared his archive with me, he is one of the most powerful people to me, to be able to be quiet because he had to be, but to collect all the photos, all the documents from all of his community members, take photos of almost every house in that community that used to exist before it was demolished. You know, to do that. Like, imagine what it would take for someone of that generation to see your whole community, people you grew up with, family members, because these people were related to each other. This wasn't just, hey, I just know such and such, like from going to school. No, these people actually went to church together. Like, they actually grew up together. Their parents raised the next door neighbor's kids and vice versa, right? So, like, imagine growing up like that, and his generation also being afraid that if you do speak out, you literally could get killed. Yeah. Like, this wasn't a game. This was serious. This was life and death for them. He felt like the best thing I can do is to take photos, and this was like taking photos in the more recent years, because most of those houses that remain went down. People don't realize this, and I keep having to say this because I think it really does give you a perspective about what this community endured that is closer to the truth than anything else I've seen prior to the story that I reported, right? That these houses existed. Most of the houses that remain after the original eminent domain seizure in the 1960s, they still, like, these people still persisted on the perimeter for almost like another 30, 40 years. And then it was in the early 2000s that you saw most of those houses go down on the perimeter. And we're talking about 90 some odd residences, okay? So I say all of that to say that he took those photos during that time period, right? But the point is, he still took the photos. He still got out, he got in his car and drove around and fought through the despair to document what was happening to that community. And to me, that is so powerful. Yeah. Because he didn't go out with a sign, he didn't protest the demolition of the houses. He knew what the fate was going to be, but he still had the foresight. And he didn't even know what he was doing, truly. But he still had the foresight to say, I'm still going to document what's happening. And I just feel like that's more powerful than anything you could ever do in terms of preserving history, because it gives people in my generation visual proof that this happened, right? It hit differently. It hits much differently than someone just telling you that.
Exactly. And the thing about it is they forever want us to forget our history. And I don't understand it. They never tell Jews to forget the Holocaust. They don't never tell the people in other countries, forget about Hiroshima, forget about Nagasaki, forget about all these different things that happened to you, but they always tell us, they don't even want us to forget about 9/11. You understand? So, but you always want us to forget our history. And you got to understand, like you said, how powerful history is.
Very.
Because they'll let you know, how historians say, if you don't know your history, it's bound to repeat itself.
Absolutely.
You begin to look at all the different things, like Eugene was saying, that they begin to want to strip away and take away the fabric of what it is, because you begin to understand how many people invented certain things. What you want to maybe forget about George Washington Carver did 300 ways to use the peanut. You want to forget about that? You want to forget about Charles Drew as the one that showed you how to do blood transfusion. He had a car accident and you let him bleed to death because you didn't want him to have white blood, when he the one invented the whole flipping process. You understand? It makes no sense. But let me go back. I'm gonna go back to this. I'm gonna ask you this as a journalist. And so we have two, I would say, bipolar or polar people. Some people believe in the civil rights movement and believe that we should have did it. We should have boycotted. That's what we should have done in order to integrate. But some was like, well, why are we boycotting the bus system? Why are we boycotting to get on the front of the bus when we had people? Because one of the people that helped fund the civil rights movement, you know what I'm saying, was a rich guy. He's always bailed King out as well. But they own bus companies, you understand? And they were like, well, why should we try to integrate? Why we just didn't? Because we already had black enterprise. We already had our own businesses. We already had separate businesses because we had to have our own barbershop. They didn't want us to go to theirs. We had to have our own hair salons. You know what I'm saying? In fact, I'm sorry, I'm going to digress to something. That's when we say we forget about our history. We the one that started the ambulance system. We black people were going around taking care of their people. White people got upset that were in power that black people were getting better care. In fact, they even put on one of those TV shows that black people were getting better care than the white people were with their own system. Then they made it illegal to do it. Then they started the ambulance where actually stole the idea that black people had to take care of their own community. And so you look at it and you say, well, we are, because when we do stuff, it's stripped away because of the lack of power that we have when it comes to arms, you know, and guns and political power and things of that nature. So we are great. It's just every time we do greatness, it's stolen. And that's why I'm so glad you document stuff, because we got to document the things that continue to be stripped away. And the reason why they want to tell you the history, as you were saying, Brother Eugene, is because they don't want you to know the history, because they don't want to know. They don't want you to know all the contributions that you made. Yep. You understand? They don't want to talk about how a black man designed Washington, D.C. and made it so confusing, so when the enemy comes there, they don't know how to get around, but the people inside knew how. You understand? Anyway, I'm getting irritated. I can tell my voice go down just by walking through this, man. It's that energy.
It's rough.
It's rough.
It's rough.
And it's like, I know you had to go through it in order to push that story through. And I mean, it woke up a lot of people. But the crazy thing about it is, I continue to do some of the stuff I'm doing, but some people get woke up for a moment and they go back to sleep. You know, but you had a lot of people moving. Oh my God, they're going to start moving again when they see this, because they know I'm subtly shooting at them a little bit. You know what I'm saying? Oh, wow. But I know I can see how you moving.
No, I was that Charles Page guy who created the first airship.
Yeah.
And on his way to the World's Fair, some kind of way.
Oh, yeah, they stole it. Yeah, they had white people talking about that. Yes, the airplane. Yes, and then he put it on the train, and then it got missing somehow. And all of a sudden, the Orville brothers did it. Oh my God, they got a whole town. Even white people began to support that one. It's crazy, just crazy how so many things are stolen. The dude finally got paid for the Super Soaker. The black dude, he didn't get paid that long ago. That he invented, you know, and then they stole it, never gave him his money, but he finally got it. I mean, that was years ago. I mean, people used to be shooting people out of cars when we was little kids, man. And then, you know, you got to fight, man. Oh my God, why do you have to fight so hard for something you already earned and did on your own? But they always want to hide it because they don't want your greatness to show. But, you know.
And that's why I keep saying, like, now is really the time. It has always been the time, let me be clear, because I don't want to make it sound like I'm saying it has never been the time. And I do think we should credit those that have been brave enough to tell the truth, the whole truth, but nothing but the truth throughout our history, right? And I think we should all be empowered by that in this moment to share that truth even more loudly, is what I'm saying. And this time, what we were experiencing in our country is no better time than ever, right, for people to share their truth, right? And, you know, and I was speaking at this, I was in New Mexico like a week or so ago, because also I want, one of the things that I have started to witness is that the experiences that Black people have had in Newport News in terms of their communities being displaced is universal across this country, right? Really across this world, right? But I mean, even the idea of displacing community, because with that means like you're disrupting unity, right? But one of the things that I was at a conference in New Mexico, and I brought that up because I saw a house that literally was very similar to the house that is on Prince Drew right now, right in the middle of campus. It's the last house occupied by a family on near that used to be the neighborhood where CNU exists now. And that house is literally like, in order to get to their driveway, you got to drive through the campus parking lot just to get to their driveway. And I saw a house just like that in New Mexico. It was like in the middle of a parking lot next to like a cultural arts center. And I was just like mind blown. But at that conference, someone was asking about, like, how do we prepare for, what current time we're in? And one of the messages I left them with was, the same tools that are being used against us can be the same tools that empower us through this moment, right? Like, we have access to all of these different resources, at least right now, right? But we're smart people, right? So we can always figure out a way to replace whatever is confiscated, But the point is, the same tools that are being used to spread information that is inaccurate about us can be the same tools we use to spread the information that is accurate about us, about the resilience of us, about the intelligence of us, about the capacity and the talent and the innovation and the creative and all that we are as a people, right? And so it just goes back to the point. I'm saying that to underscore truly what I've been saying, which is really simply that we can be the authors of our own story, even more now than we ever have been, despite what's going on around us, is what I'm saying.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Exactly. This is what we got to have more people in media like her. Like, man, look at Ryan Coogler. He laces his movies with black stuff. Like, when you look at Black Panther, when Killmonger, played by Michael B. Jordan, was in the museum talking to the lady, and she was telling him the history of all these different things. And she said something about that hammer that was made out of vibranium, whatever that fake alloy they made. And so he was like, nah, man, it's vibranium, what is it called? I'm not, it ain't real no way, you know what I'm saying? But he was like, nah, that's from Wakanda. And then the lady said, no, excuse me, he said, no, it's from Wakanda. He said, oh, don't trip. I'm going to take it off your hands. Right? He said, oh, don't trip. I'm going to take it off your hands. Like, don't even worry about it. She said, what do you mean? It's not for sale. I know. But how did you think your ancestors got it? They took it. Basically, I'm going to take back what y'all stole from us. You understand? And it's like how he puts it in there. And it's subtle, but not subtle at the same time. You understand? And then when you look at the movie, how he do with Sinners. You look at the vampire stuff and people might say it's the money, but at the end of the day, he letting you know about your history and the stuff that you had to go through when you own land, how it made you a target. Like, when you talk about the land, how they came and took away, he made sure you understood it's spiritual warfare. Because really, soon as those black men bought that land with cash and that's when all the trouble came, because now it's a target on their back because you have shown that you have already started superseding the system that we're trying to keep you in. You a crab that's supposed to still be in this barrel that we put all y'all Negroes in. Somehow you done got out. So, it showed how at the end, I don't want to say give away the movie, but, they really they wanted to kill them, and they were planned on killing them, because at the end of the day, you got more than what I got. I don't know how you able to just buy this. They selling the same thing over and over again, because at the end of the day, they ain't never mean for you to keep it. They were gonna sell it to you, kill you, and take it right back. You understand? So which is just, to me, exactly what you dealing with when you look at the CNU situation, man. But it's just how powerful he does it, because he knows how to do enough to put that truth out there, but they making money, so they just let it go through. And because he's so gifted and it's bringing them money, they let his creativity make it to the widescreen, because at the end of the day, my bottom line is I want to make money. But you still awakening people a little bit, maybe even a lot, because of the certain way that you lace those messages in that movie, and then begin to put positive images of black people on the screen. I don't know, Bill Cosby guilty, not guilty, but at the end of the day, he single-handedly caused an increase and change the trajectory of black America going to college when he started a different world, right? Black people began to see themselves, oh, I want to go to college. And so Oprah Winfrey, they don't care if she bought a network, not trying to knock her. But every time Cosby wanted to buy the network, that's when they started bringing that stuff out. Remember when he, I ain't saying he guilty, I ain't saying he not guilty, but each time he wanted to buy NBC and Discovery, then they started bringing the women stuff out, then he left it alone, then it'll die down. I don't know if you really realize every time he started to do it, they brought it up, then it'll die down. Was it true? Was it not? I don't know. But the point is, anytime he went to buy it, then when he got to the point, man, I'm so old, I'm going to keep pushing through it, I'm going to buy it anyway. And that's when they brought him down. Not that saying that if he did do it, yes, you should get justice. But again, I don't know because, I don't know what's true, what's not true. But I do know that they wanted to make sure that he didn't own a network because it brought too many positive images of us. Can you imagine how much power, how much he changed the trajectory with them two shows, the Cosby Show and A Different World, if he had a whole network? You understand that? And so that's why I just continue to pray and cover people like Ryan Coogler, people like Miss Brittany, people get to cover them because at the end of the day, when they begin to speak truth in writing where it goes out to the masses, you begin to have a target on your back because people don't want the truth. I just say, what's that? You get me? They can't handle the truth. They can't handle it. Anyway, go ahead and close this out.
Yeah, so this is like a new venture for me. And part of it is because it's a way for me to structure the independent work that I'm doing as a journalist. Because once I moved back here, I stepped more into being my own, like being an independent journalist, right? And so that's why, so I'll share a few things. Currently, the original reporting was funded by a fellowship and grant funding, and now it's currently being funded by fellowship and grant funding because I just recently received another fellowship by Columbia University to continue to do this storytelling, right? And so so you'll be able to still see the documentary, which is on YouTube, on ProPublica's YouTube channel. It's called Uprooted. That's the name of the documentary. And then if you search Uprooted and you search ProPublica in general on like a search engine, you'll find the series on their page as well. And then I also have my own website, so I'll be continuing to put my work up there too. Yeah.
Then if you send me the information, I'll make sure he get it.
Yeah,
we'll put it out there, and then we'll
Mm-hmm.
make sure when we post this story on social media and we post it on YouTube, we'll make sure we guide them to that.
Yeah.
To watch it.
And I just think like just leaving it with the fact that we are currently seeing the results of using history to understand what our present day circumstances are and what that can do for people with this commission in Virginia. And even like the city and the school, Christopher Newport and the City of Newport News have a local task force that's looking at this issue as well, right? So it moved to look at this in a structural, institutional way. And I think that I think that since we are currently looking at this, while we are focusing on what happened in the past, we can also look at, and we're holding accountable the past, we can also hold accountable the present. But that takes like people, asking questions and truly trying to understand like what the work is that's actually being done. And so I'll just leave it at that. And my current research and reporting right now is to continue to help us understand our history, but also to continue to shed a light on what's being done now to address the issue. And I think we should be forward-looking in that regard, as well as using the past to understand how we can rectify what happened to these families.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Y'all here, man. Boss, man. That's what I'm talking about. Well, thank y'all so much for tuning in to Emancipate. We got to get her back. I feel like some more stuff in here, but I don't want to hold my cameraman here all day. I know he got about 20 more clients he got to get. But anyway, so thank you so much for coming.
Yeah,
thank you so
sure.
much for stopping by. And we'll make sure that we provide information to our audience so that they can put it out. And so we can move forward with that. That's what I'm talking about.
All right.
And go